and welcome to the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, Applying to Research Opportunities Workshop. My name is Anna Patino, I'm a UROP Advisor, and I will be covering today's workshop. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin today's workshop, I do want to go over our research roadmap, which of course is going to be the best way to understand what step we're on and what resources are going to be necessary to complete that step in our research journey. So for folks that have not watched our undergraduate research and U information session, I do highly recommend that you go back and watch that before attending today's workshop, as it's going to give very important context and information that might be relevant to today's workshop. You can go back to the UROP website and go to our research roadmap to watch the recording of our undergraduate research and U information session, or feel free to visit the UROP calendar to see when our next information session, either in person or on Zoom, will be. At this point, we are on step 3, applying to research opportunities. At this point, students have already understood what topics they find interesting to them and have already found potential faculty mentors. So as we're looking at applying to research opportunities, please keep in mind that you should already have a list of faculty mentors that you're considering working with at this point. As a little refresher, let's go ahead and go over the steps to finding a faculty mentor. So again, we're going to make a list of faculty who interest you, starting with faculty that you know or that you might have for your classes, but also using online tools such as the faculty profile system and the school or departmental websites where faculty lists their bios and their research interests. But do also please make sure that you keep your list organized, as it's going to come in handy as you're applying today. You can go ahead and use the UROP template. You can find it on our research roadmap under step 2, finding faculty mentors. Additional ways to find faculty could include going to faculty's office hours, going to networking events that are specific to your interests, or through on-campus organizations. That is something that you might want to keep in mind and ask any UROP advisor or UROP peer advisor for advice in the future. If you'd like additional help in finding a faculty mentor, you can register for an upcoming Finding a Faculty Mentor workshop on the UROP calendar, or if those are not currently available, you can go ahead and, like I said, watch the recording on the UROP website. Now moving on to applying to research opportunities. As you might have seen in our undergraduate research and U information session, you have 2 options generally. So there's either going to be a way to formally apply to work through this research opportunity or creative activity, or you might want to consider sending an email to the professor or faculty that you're considering working with. When online applications are available, you definitely do want to try that route first. They're not always going to be available. Not all professors have formal applications, but it is something that you might want to take a look for when you are considering working with someone, looking through their website, either their personal website or their lab website. If an online application is available, they might require some different materials. For example, they might require a copy of your CV, your resume, some sort of transcript. They might ask about your GPA. You might want to consider asking a letter of recommendation from someone else, or they might want a reference of some sort. Not all faculty are the same, and therefore they might ask for different materials, or they might ask for no materials at all. This is definitely something you'll want to take a look at and pay close attention to when you're filling out these applications. Definitely only submit what is requested. It is not recommended that you submit extra materials on top of what the faculty is asking for. Note any important deadlines or timelines listed. It's always extremely important to meet deadlines and make sure that you are communicating if the timeline that is provided is not something that you can commit to. Do also make sure to note the contact that is listed. Oftentimes the faculty is the person that you'll want to contact directly, but it is also possible that this faculty member has designated some sort of student, whether that's an undergraduate student or a graduate student, as their primary form of contact. You may still need to follow up through email even if you do submit an online application, so that is something you'll want to keep a close eye on and make sure that you take note of what date you decided to apply to work with this faculty member. Now, if an application is not available, then you'll want to consider emailing this faculty member. Keep in mind that emailing faculty is extremely common, and this is something that is done quite often, so you don't need to feel like you're doing something wrong by emailing faculty members at all. It's a great way to make initial connections with potential mentors, and here's some tips for your email approach. Now here's some do's. Do definitely address the individual that you're emailing in a professional manner, preferably referring to them as professor or doctor if they hold a doctoral degree, especially if you don't know this faculty member. And if you do know this faculty member and are on a first name basis with them, you can make the decision on whether or not to use their first name in this email. Make sure that you identify yourself and give some information about how you know them or how you found them, what your interests are, and potentially what your major or specific research interest is. Make each email personal and concise. You definitely don't want to write one long, vague email and just change the name at the top and send it out to multiple professors. You'll want to make sure that each email is tailored to the professor that you're applying to work with and that it's not too lengthy. Make sure that you research the professors before emailing them, and you'll see why that's important a little bit later in our workshop today. Please make sure to check your grammar. It's always super important to make a good first impression, and this is your way of making a first impression. So you'll want to double check your grammar and make sure that there aren't spelling mistakes or anything that's too confusing to read in your email. So things we do not want to do. Do not attach your resume unless they request it. This, of course, is a personal preference for some faculty mentors, and UROP as a whole does not recommend that you attach additional materials that they didn't ask for. But if your faculty mentor does ask for some sort of resume or any other materials, do make sure to include that. Do not write it like a text message. It is very common nowadays to send quick emails through a phone app or on your laptop quickly, but we do really want to maintain professionalism and again, make a good first impression with the faculty that we're trying to work with. So make sure that you're writing full sentences and again, checking your grammar. Do not make the email about yourself only. We'll go ahead and cover the format of your email shortly, but you do want to make sure that you're including information about the faculty mentor as well, and that the whole email isn't just about you and your interests. So let's take a closer look at what an email should look like when you're emailing potential faculty mentors. We'll want to keep in mind that the purpose of this email is to build a relationship with this faculty, not ask for a research opportunity right away. It is extremely easy for faculty mentors to miss emails or not see them on time. And if you go ahead and ask for an opportunity right away without building a relationship first, it can get missed or ignored in some cases. So our first paragraph is going to be introducing yourself and your research interests, again, starting to build that relationship. You'll want to include some general information about yourself, potentially your major, your research interests, why you might be interested in that topic, any particular motivations you might have for pursuing this particular topic, or research as a whole, and any other relevant information or experience that you might have in this particular paragraph. Still, we'll want to remain concise and not take up too much of our email, sharing too much information about ourselves. In your second paragraph, this will really be about the faculty mentor. You'll want to highlight their expertise and how it matches your particular research interest. So remember when I said that it's important to research your faculty mentor ahead of time? This is why. You'll really want to be specific in your email about what they do and how it connects to your interests, your motivations, and how they would be a good mentor for you in the future. This is something that's really important as it helps faculty understand why you're specifically choosing to work with them. And in many cases, it can be a huge factor as to whether or not they choose to set up some sort of interview, meet with you, or continue that relationship in some way. Third paragraph, this is where students typically will ask directly, do you have any open spots to work with? Can I come work in your lab? But we really do not recommend that you use that verbiage. Instead, we recommend that you ask these faculty mentors for appointments. So when you ask them for an appointment, you're directly asking them for an action, you're wanting to meet with them. Again, build that relationship and get to know each other a little bit better before talking about potentially working with them. Now that we've covered the 3 paragraphs that you should include in an email, let's go over an example of what not to do. As we read this example, do make sure that you take some time to look through it and try to guess what is wrong with this particular example. As we're reading through, we can see that this email is addressed to Dr. Irvine at uci.edu with the subject research. The email reads, "I'm a first-year psychological sciences major and I'm writing to ask about open positions in your lab. I've conducted some research in high school, but need more to get into grad school. I've attached my resume to this email. Please let me know. Thank you, Peter." As we're looking through this email, there are a few things that I can point out that could use some work. First of all, our subject line, research, is extremely vague. It doesn't really give our professor an idea of what exactly it is that you might want to be discussing, and it could cover a lot. So it doesn't really have an eye-catching subject line or anything particularly descriptive. In giving this email an overall look, I can see there are various grammar mistakes, like incorrect punctuation, incorrect capitalization, and it overall doesn't flow very well. While it is particularly concise, I will give them that, it doesn't really share any of the information that you might want to share with a faculty mentor or a potential faculty mentor. It gives some information about major and that they are interested in research, but that's about it. Additionally, there's no information about the faculty mentor and why their research would be a good fit. It's particularly informal, and additionally, they're asking for a research position upfront in an email to someone that they don't know and have not taken time to build a connection with. Additionally, you can see that a resume is attached without the faculty requesting a resume to be attached, and they sign off with their first name only, which brings me back to they never addressed the professor in the first point, so they just went straight into their email. Now that you've seen an example of what not to do, let's talk about how we can better our email and make sure that we're giving ourselves the best chances when we're applying to research opportunities. I highly recommend that you use our UROP faculty email template when writing your email. There's some information on there about tips, things to do before you start writing your email, as well as a step-by-step, paragraph-by-paragraph list of things that you could include and things that you might want to consider writing in your email to that faculty. Additionally, there's some resources linked on here, such as a YouTube video on some more examples and how to write an email to a faculty mentor. Additionally, there's links to things like the Writing Center, who can be extremely helpful when you are doing any sort of writing here at UCI. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at where we can find this UROP email template. So to download this template, you'll want to go to urop.uci.edu, click the Research Roadmap tab, and go to Step 3, Applying to Research Opportunities, which is where you can find the download link for the faculty email template. Let's go ahead and take a look at the UROP website so we can better explain how to find this. Here you can see I'm on the UROP website. If I go up here to Research Roadmap, I'll go ahead and click on that. I'm going to go here to Step 3, Apply to Research Opportunities. If I scroll down here, I'll see that there is a worksheet specifically for applying to research opportunities, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. As I scroll through, you'll see that there's various resources, but I'm really interested in this email guide. So here you'll see this is where you can go ahead and download our faculty email template, where there's additional links, and you can go ahead and take a look step by step on what you'll want to write in your email. Now that we have that, let's write your email draft. Here's some tips for your first paragraph. Again, this first paragraph should be about you. So in this first one, you'll want to start with Dear in this example, Dr. Irvine, you'll want to address the professor by whatever is appropriate. You'll want to write a paragraph about why you want to do research. What type of research you want to do? Do you have any background that is directly relevant to this research? Why does it matter to you? How will you get involved in research of this type? And how will that help you get closer to whatever academic or career goal that you might have now? These are things that you could consider putting in the first paragraph of your email. You do not have to include all of this. If there is some information that is not relevant to you, feel free to omit it or add anything that you feel that this might be missing. So let's take some time now to draft that first paragraph. We recommend that you take about 5 minutes. Don't think too deeply about it, and just make sure that you go ahead and draft whatever is relevant to you. You can always come back and edit it later. Go ahead and pause the video here and come back when you're ready. All right, now that we have our first paragraph drafted, let's come back to our second paragraph, which should be about them, about the faculty. So write a paragraph on why you want to work with this particular professor. I recommend that you be as specific as possible in giving examples. So why did you choose them as a good fit for your research interests? Give 1 or 2 examples from the research that you've done on them. For example, if you have read an article of theirs or watched a video of theirs, mention it directly by name and talk about what you found interesting, any questions you might have, or how it overlaps with something that you've been wanting to learn. Talk about why you found them compelling and how they fit with your particular goals. As a side note, this should be your biggest paragraph when you're writing these emails, as it's likely the most important, but you'll still want to keep this concise. Now we can take some time to go ahead and draft our second paragraph. I recommend that you take about 8 minutes to do so, again, not thinking too deeply about it and just making sure that we get some words on the page. If you'd like to pause the video here, go ahead and work on your second paragraph and come back when you're ready. All right, we are almost done with our first draft of our email. In our third paragraph, we're going to ask the professor for an appointment, not a position. So state your desire to meet with them to discuss your research interests and about the possibility of working with them. Briefly include some days and times that you're available, so make sure to keep this very specific, and if you are not available during a certain time, please make sure that you don't list it. We want to make sure that we're being as honest and as organized as possible. Make sure that you list your full name and your contact information, and that you sign off appropriately with your full name and a sign-off. Go ahead and take about 5 minutes to draft the last part of your email. Make sure that you are asking them again for an appointment and properly signing off before moving on to our next step. All right, great job. So now that we have drafted our very first email applying to work with a potential faculty mentor, how do we feel about the email draft you've written? Go ahead and give it a look over and have some initial thoughts about it. What do you like about it? And what do you feel like could use some improvement? As you're thinking through your first draft of your email, this might be good to bring to either a UROP Advisor or also a Writing Center staff for additional help if you'd like some help editing. Some things to remember as we are applying to research opportunities and writing these emails or potentially applying online is that our goal is to get some sort of meeting with the professor, whether this be a formal interview or an informal meeting, just to, again, build that connection. Make sure that you're being persistent as well. I mentioned earlier in our workshop that it might be necessary for you to follow up via email, even if you submitted an application. So definitely do follow up if you haven't heard back in a week, and we do recommend that you follow up every week for a couple of weeks at least. Make sure that you are politely following up and just giving the professor some more chances to get back to you. When you do meet with the professor, whether it's formal or informal, treat the meeting like an interview. You'll definitely want to make sure that you are preparing and having some questions for them. Additionally, you might want to consider reading a little bit more of their work ahead of meeting with them. Do remember that each faculty mentor has their own way of doing things. There isn't a one-size-fits-all. Some might be a bit more strict about their requirements, some might be less strict, others are more formal about their interview processes, and some might not be. This could be dependent on your field, but also on the individual faculty that you're applying to work with. Again, do make sure that you prepare ahead of time, both by reading ahead on any of their work that they might be doing, either contacting maybe some of their students if that's appropriate, or getting help from a UROP advisor. Be sure to use your resources such as the Undergraduate Research NU Workbook, as well as our UROP email template, the UCI Writing Center, a UROP advising appointment if you'd like to talk through any of these points, and also the UROP Guide to Emailing Professors YouTube video, which you can find on our YouTube channel and linked on the email template. Congratulations, you've now made it to the end of our Applying to Research Opportunities workshop. Just going back to our research roadmap and seeing how far you've made it. At this point, we are still on step 3, Apply to Research Opportunities. But next, you will be connecting with UROP for any help that you might need and any questions that you've had up until this point. Do please be sure to go to our website and make an appointment with a UROP advisor, either a peer advisor or a professional staff, or you can always contact us via phone or email, and we are located on the 5th floor of the Science Library if you'd like to stop by for any questions. That brings us to the end of our workshop for today. Thank you so much for being here, and I really do look forward to seeing you in the UROP office and at any UROP events in the future.